Dr. Jessie Hehmeyer. What do you know about functional medicine? I've had the great honor and privilege to talk to many here. Do you understand its difference between traditional medicine or traditional doctor, an MD, versus somebody who practices functional medicine? They just take a very different approach. They'll tell you still need the MD, by the way. It's not a replacement, but when they do the panel, they're just looking for things that generally the MD doesn't check for, and then look for ways through supplementation, through other means to actually cure it. I opened up the question with a term that everybody should know, and I was surprised that I hadn't heard it, but root cause medicine. So often now we get medicine that just fixes the symptoms, just addresses the symptoms of whatever ailment you have. But root cause medicine is trying to actually stop the root cause of why it's happening. But it's an honest and great conversation with Dr. Jessie, and she's just very open. She's incredibly smart, knows her stuff, has lots of degrees, and breaks it down. We also talk about balancing hormones. And just the practice of loving yourself in the health journey. But it's a great conversation. I really, really enjoy it. I look forward to continuing this conversation. It's important conversations to have about functional medicine. Thanks so much for listening.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others.
I'm very excited to talk to you, Dr. Jess Hehmeyer. Thanks so much for your time. Talk to me about root cause medicine. I've never heard the term before. Certainly functional medicine is becoming more and more popular, which is good, but root cause medicine.
Yeah, well, I would say, at its core, functional medicine is an approach that seeks to identify the root cause, right? The root cause of symptoms and health conundrums, as opposed to merely managing symptoms. Now, of course, we want people to feel well, and sometimes that requires some kind of like temporary symptom management, but we want to really resolve those symptoms. And to resolve symptoms or even certain diseases requires understanding the root cause. So the work is really diving in, using data, right? Not throwing darts, but actually using data in the way of lab tests and discovering what the source is of either a dis-ease, a disease, or symptoms, health conundrums, all those goodies.
Yeah, because way too often, you're feeling a particular pain, or someone's feeling pain, they get a medication, it relieves the pain, but they're not really curing it. They're just relieving the symptom. And that's generally how the American drug system works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, it's, there are different things are right at different times. So sometimes it is true, the right thing to do is to mitigate severe pain, to minimize it, right? So this is not an either or approach. This is really using the best of all the tools we have to offer and bringing them together such that people move towards a future where they feel their best, they look their best, they're able to be their best. To me, that is what this is all about, right? Our health is the foundation that makes everything possible. And so, bringing in the best of all the toolkits and knowing what's right when, that to me is the name of the game.
Far too often I hear, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. The attitude, of course, should be you should get healthy. And when you're getting healthy, you'll lose weight.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Weight loss, I think of as a side effect, right? And, there are many things I could say about this whole weight loss world, right? And the first thing that I'd say is, the inherited paradigm in the world of weight loss and how we care for our bodies, it just really doesn't work for almost anyone I know, right? It
Mm.
really is this paradigm of all or nothing, right? And as you were saying, Joe, like it's people keeping their eye on the scale rather than getting clear about what actions would make a difference.
Mm.
So, that first part, that all or nothing approach, to take those kind of two big things that I really see as fundamental problems with the way people have been taught to approach their
Right.
weight, right? The first one is they have two options. It's either overindulgence or deprivation.
Mm.
Those are the two
Mm.
options, right? It's
Mm.
either I'm going to do the whole 30 and I'm going to, say no to everything that, sugar, salt, alcohol, everything that is low nutrient, I'm going to say no to everything. Or, when that feels like excessive deprivation and I can do it no more, AKA on day 31, I'm
Mm.
going to overindulge, right? I'm going to grab the bottle of wine and the full pizza, right? Whatever it is, right? So this is the way that people have been taught to relate to their food and how to care for their bodies. And the thing is, it leaves people losing over and over and over again. It just doesn't work. And so when I work with people, we really step into a whole new era together. I guide them in what I call authoring their middle ground. And that's a whole new world, as opposed to the all or nothing approach, the deprivation and overindulgence, which is really born of self aggression. They're stepping into a new era where they're caring for their bodies and themselves from a place of self love.
Mm.
And from that place of self love, they begin to play a better game. They begin to find that sweet spot sway, not too tight, not too loose. And that changes everything over time. Right. So that's, like that really is one of the big game changers in this whole world of stepping into just a whole new relationship with body and self and the way people care for themselves.
Self-love, a new relationship with yourself, because you've got to work hard at it. Because I heard you talk about, you spent a lot of time there in Switzerland, and the grocery stores. When you came here, you noticed that like the produce was kind of hidden. It's like when you first come in, they hit you with all the junk, and there's so much bad food that tastes great, by the way, but that's inexpensive and just right there in front of you. So we have to actively fight that. And well, you have to minimize. You don't have to eliminate it completely, of course. You just have to kind of deal in just modesty. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe, you bring up a great point, right? The environment that is the United States,
Yeah.
very sadly, is not currently, because I do believe this is a changeable thing, it is not
Good.
currently set up for people to win at the game of honoring their health as sacred. It's just not, right? You
No.
just, as you so perfectly said about like our experience walking into a grocery store, right? It's really what's fast and easy and gets that dopamine hit real quickly. Those are not the things that are going to forward your health and vitality, and yet they're abundant,
Yes.
and for people living a busy life, I understand, right? It's the thing that just has it all, it just kind of works from a time perspective, but it certainly doesn't work from the long-term time perspective because
Mm.
they're gonna pay for it. Likely is the likely future, whether it's with the time they have in their life or the quality of their life or the time they give to giving to doctor's appointments because their health is compromised, right? So it really does take a whole new level of intentionality to begin to think about, okay, how there's the environment at large, which I have minimal ability to change, right? I
Right.
can't change how they set up the grocery store,
No.
right? But I can start to look at the environments I choose, right? I can put blinders on when I walk into the grocery store and
Mm,
beeline it to the produce aisle, for
right.
example, right? I could, if I find it exceedingly difficult to avoid Dairy Queen, right? I could actually take a different route home. So I
Hmm.
don't even have to confront the temptation, right? So it takes a little bit of getting creative and also just really being honest with yourself instead of feeling like, oh gosh, I'm the failure. I'm so ashamed. I can't resist Dairy Queen or whatever it is, right?
Mm.
Just kind of being honest with yourself and going, this is hard for me to be a no to. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, guess what? That food was engineered knowing with
Mm.
that it would be hard for you to say no to
Yes.
it. Like literally, food scientists know these things. So don't feel badly, choose a different path.
I have 10 grapes. I don't want any more grapes. If I have 10 potato chips, I want more potato chips.
Yes.
It's just so obvious. And like I said, I've had some weight issues that I struggled with, and you just kind
Mhm.
of, I try not to take elevators as much. If it's 2 or 3 floors, get a good walk in. Don't park so close. Have a nice walk to get to your destination. You could do some simple things that could just increase that. And as far as a grocery store, it's really is a battle. And I've turned into an ingredients reader, Jesse, and I can't. I don't want seed oils. These there's try to stick with whole foods. Who do I talk to? Try to eat the food that looks like it originally looked like. Is that what they say?
Right.
Or something like that,
Yes,
right?
you got it, Joe.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, mostly, if you have to look at the ingredient list, mostly you can kind of guess it's probably not the ideal choice,
Right.
right? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep the ingredients low, and the whole thing. Well, my father's an Italian immigrant, and when I go to Italy, they eat pasta once a week, and everybody walks. Nobody's overweight, but the pasta doesn't have folic acid in it. The bread doesn't have 400 ingredients in it that they eat. It's got two or three, and it's just simple. So the whole thing is, I can't have this, I can't have that. You just have to moderate. You have to be bit moderate, and you have to understand exactly what you're eating or try to.
Yep, absolutely. It does take some education, and that education takes time, right? So it's
Yeah.
one foot in front of the other. And I love what you pointed to in the way of like, okay, 2 or 3 flights, I'm going to take the stairs, right? Just those actions to me, I would call that, a wonderful micro habit, right? You know that, taking the stairs 2 to 3 stairs, like, okay, that by itself, is that going to radically transform your health if you do nothing else?
Mm.
Probably not. But the thing is, it's not just that. It's not just this one act alone. First of all, that act is your declaration to yourself and the world that your health matters, right? It's declaration in action.
Mm.
And as you begin to vote for that, as you begin to vote for, yes, I care about my health, and this is evidence, I took the stairs, you'll begin to continue to build on it, right? I'm sure you
Mm.
could reflect on your own journey and see that, right? Maybe it starts with the stairs and then you go, okay, I'm gonna get a small Coke instead of a large,
Right.
right? It's just those incremental shifts over time. And I think about some of this like crossing the monkey bars. One of the things with that all or nothing approach is, like that whole 30 is a bit like asking someone to start at one end of the monkey bars and reach all the way to the end. Like that
Mm.
doesn't happen like that. Nobody makes change like that. Even people who have big health scares, we're talking heart attacks and stents put in and it's very, very rare that even though when those people immediately on the other side, swear they found religion in the world of, health, it rarely sticks
Mm.
because it just takes time to create change. That's one reason. The other reason is really it requires something to stay present to why your health matters. Why would you take the stairs instead of the elevator?
Mm.
Why would you either get a smaller Coke or maybe someday skip the Coke altogether?
Yeah.
Why would you? And that answer for you, for me, for all of your listeners out there, we're all going to have our own unique answer. And I really think it's important for people to set aside just a few minutes to contemplate the answer to that question. Why
Mm.
is my health so important to me? What does it make available that I really care about?
Hmm.
Whether that's being present with others, whether that's feeling great in your body, whether that's, something you're up to in the world that really is meaningful to you that just cannot happen unless you have your health. Actually contemplate it and even write it down. Like, give yourself 3 minutes to write down why your health is
Hmm.
important to you.
I mean, for me, Jesse, it was, I got myself up to 340 pounds. I was working way too much. And then the doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. So when
Mm,
you have that conversation with yourself, I'm not doing this. I'm unhealthy. It's not just affecting me, it's now affecting a family. So that was the kind of come to Jesus moment for me. I said, look,
yes.
I'm not going to make temporary changes. 90% or 88% of the people who lose weight gain it right back.
Yeah.
This is going to be a lifetime change that I'm going to do. So for me, it kind of took that kind of punch in the face by my doctor. And like you said, it could be different for anybody else, but that's what it took for me. And I've managed to kind of keep it.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about how old's your daughter now?
She just turned 24 yesterday.
Amazing. Happy birthday to your daughter.
Yeah.
And so like, when you're really confronted with that, like as you were, right? And by the way, I really acknowledge you because your doctor said it, but you heard it.
That's right.
You
Yeah.
didn't have to hear it, but you did.
Good point.
And you didn't just hear it with your ears, you heard it with
Right.
your heart.
Yeah. Good point.
And, you know,
Good point.
considering like my daughter or McDonald's, like, I mean,
Mm,
come on, is that a
mm,
choice? Like, that's like a
right.
silly contemplation, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's really, it takes something to remember. No, that's actually what it's for. That's why I would be a no to this thing that in the moment may seem, oh, just it's not a big deal.
Right.
Anyone will say, oh gosh, we understand. You've had a busy day. You're stressed, you're overwhelmed. You'll get that from people, not because they're bad or evil, just because they're in the same position too,
Mm,
right? And so, to really go pause, to slow down and say, no, actually, this is about something that is the most important thing to me.
certainly is. You talk a lot about balancing hormones naturally.
Hmm.
Let's talk about
Hmm.
hormones. Not enough talk
Yeah.
is on it. A lot of nutrition and sleeping and exercise, but hormones is a topic that we don't talk about a lot. Why?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think fundamentally, so far with hormones, people are left with like pharmaceuticals, like doing hormone
Mm,
replacement therapy, whether that's testosterone or estrogen and progesterone, or like all of those things, right? And there's not a whole lot of talk about how we might be able to support our body's ability to produce hormones and receive the message of those hormones
hmm.
optimally, right? Because for any hormone to work, we need to make the hormone and we need to receive the message, two
Right.
aspects of that. And, kind of looking at the complexities of making hormones and getting the messages, there are so many different points of leverage we can have for supporting our body. One is simply on the nutrient front, right? There are things that help our body in both of these aspects. Something that comes to mind is vitamin D. Vitamin D is a pro hormone. It actually helps your body produce those hormones. So, getting your vitamin D levels tested and supplementing according to your body's needs, because not
Mm,
everybody needs the same amount of vitamin D, but most people do need to take a vitamin D supplement because most of us aren't working outside. Most of
right.
us are inside most of the day. And even if we are outside, we're probably covered up with clothing or SPF, which is
Mm,
inhibiting our absorption of vitamin D. So once you begin vitamin D, you want to get it checked about 4 to 6 months later to make sure you're in your sweet spot, and you want to keep it up, right? Sometimes I'll work with someone who says, "Oh yeah, I used to take vitamin D," and I'm, "Well, when did you stop?" "Oh, about 2 years ago." I'm like, "Okay, well, great, you have low vitamin D again." So the vitamin D is a forever supplement. It just really is. So vitamin D is one great point of leverage. Another nutrient that comes to mind is omega-3 fatty acids, Omega-3 fatty acids really help with the sticky mitt. The sticky mitt is that receptor that gets the message of the hormone. So we want to make sure those omega-3s are in healthy levels. And you can get them tested, but also if you're like, gosh, there are only so many tests I can do, right? You can just start really being intentional about bringing omega-3 rich foods into your days. And so by that, I mean 4 to 5 omega-3 rich, low mercury fish, seafood per week. That's a great place to move towards. And by
Mm.
move towards, I mean, if you're like, gosh, I haven't eaten fish or seafood in 5 years, maybe you just start with once a week and you figure out something you would eat and be able to enjoy and, like that. So that's another point of leverage. Another nutrient is zinc, and zinc actually works in a few different ways. But one of the big superpowers of zinc is it helps preserve your testosterone.
Hmm.
So testosterone gets turned into estrogen. And there's an enzyme that helps testosterone get turned into estrogen. Now, this isn't a quote unquote bad thing, but all of us, be it man or woman, we want to preserve optimal levels of testosterone.
Hmm.
We all do, whether we know it or not. And so, to help preserve optimal levels of testosterone, we want to make sure we have optimal amounts of zinc, because when we don't have enough zinc, our testosterone is going to get turned into estrogen at a higher rate, more than we'd like. There's more I could say about that, but that's a really great place to start. And then from there, other things that I think about is our detoxification pathways, because our hormones, the ones we produce in our bodies, as well as for anyone who's taking any kind of hormone replacement therapy or on birth control pill, any of those things, they actually go through our detoxification pathway. So we want to make sure those are running very well. There are different ways we can assess that, but one place you could begin to look, for those of you who are like, this might be something for me. One is, am I putting more toxins into my body that could be causing a traffic jam in those
Mm.
detox pathways? Simple places to look are things like alcohol, or things like smoking, whether it's cigarette or cannabis, or even just taking cannabis regularly. Anything in the drug world is going to go through those and increase our toxic load. Also, things that you're exposed to in your environment, whether it's pollution or pesticides and foods, stuff like that. So that's what's going through those detox pathways that could cause the traffic jam. If we just simply have more toxins going in, that those detox pathways are going to be overwhelmed. And then we have the exit. How do we help toxins exit the body? Because that's the whole point of detoxification, is
Mm.
take these toxins and kick them out of the body.
Hmm.
And the kicking them out of the body means we're having bowel movements on a regular basis, once a day, ideally. Other things that we would look at is, am I drinking enough water? Because again, those toxins exit by way of our urine and our bowel movements, primarily, also our sweat and our breath. But urine and bowel movements, those are, making sure you're getting 60, 70, 80, 90 ounces of water a day
Hmm.
is a great place to move towards, to help your body eliminate toxins and therefore help your hormones be processed in a healthy manner.
Some simple things there. Yeah, vitamin D, omega-3, and zinc. Which which well, I mean, let's talk about supplements. I've been taking supplements for a while now. I mean, it's hard to say if you enjoy the I think people have the attitudes like, I got a headache, so I'm taking a Tylenol, I don't have a headache anymore. So what after, like you mentioned, your friend or somebody said, "Oh, I was taking it, I don't take it anymore." They don't see immediate reaction, but you don't know if it's been fighting the stuff off. I don't think it's helped. I stopped taking fish oil, or somebody says, because it doesn't help. I don't notice a difference.
Yeah.
That's really not the best attitude for supplements.
Well, yeah, no, and for me, when I work with people, I get data and I get data again, right? So
Ah,
meaning that, okay, yes, of course I want people to notice they're feeling better. And I can't think of one time where I've just said, "Oh, just this one supplement." But that's the
hmm,
only thing we're doing. We're not changing anything else, right?
interesting.
That never happens, right? So everything works in synergy. But when we are using supplements, and I do use them regularly, we want to be targeted. We're using them based on lab results. We're giving it a couple of months to start working. And then we're testing lab results again, because oftentimes it was vitamin D, not a temporary deficit. That's a long-term gain. But
Hmm.
a lot of other nutrients are temporary deficits, right?
Hmm.
We talked about those detox pathways. If there's a huge traffic jam in those detox pathways, your body is burning through nutrients at a rate that it cannot replenish it.
Wow.
So when we reduce toxins, when we replenish nutrients from supplements, over time, often we're able to pull these things out. So the point isn't to be on supplements forevermore. The point is to support your body in a way that's
Mm.
useful and meaningful. Oftentimes that includes supplements, but those supplements will shift over time.
Hmm. So how often should you get your panel done, tested?
So it depends on the person, right? So
Mm.
I would say, for the person who's stepping into this work who really hasn't yet prioritize their health, we're probably looking at quarterly assessments initially until we find solid ground. We're seeing constant improvements. We're seeing the shifts we want. We see the inertia physiologically, biologically moving in the right direction. From there, we might pull it back to twice a year. And then from there, ultimately once a year. So I have plenty of patients and clients who I work with who they're on an annual health audit. Once a year, we get back together virtually. We connect, make sure I'm clear on where their health is, how it's been this last year. We get their labs ordered and we shift their supplements accordingly.
Hmm. So that's the functional medicine approach because your panel is much more thorough. Whereas when we go to the doctor, they're just checking. It seems like a lot, but it's not really.
No, 100%. It's so funny. I like, listen, I get it. It's a confusing world, right? This is why we have like extensive training to be able to do this stuff. But when people are like, oh, yeah, no, I just did my labs. I'm like, well, what labs did you do? I did all of them. I'm like, oh,
Right.
really? All of them? Then you have no blood left. Um, so, but no, and I understand nobody ever really sits down and explains their lab results to them until they come see someone like me, right? We
Mm.
sit down and we walk through labs. So when I send someone to go complete labs, I let them know, listen, you're going to feel like you're donating blood. We are getting a lot of information. We're not just doing your basic CMP or CBC or cholesterol panel. We are really looking under the hood to understand what is at the source of your symptoms. Where are your unique barriers to longevity? That's what we're doing. And over time, right, we talked about repeating labs. That comprehensive assessment we really only do once a year, but there people will have their own unique health dashboard,
Mm.
right? Their Achilles heels that we're going to track over time, right? So if I think about my husband, two of his big markers that we like to track over time are, well, a few actually, I'd say are B12, vitamin D, homocysteine. These are just his genetic Achilles heels. So we want to
Hmm.
keep an eye on those with greater regularity. For me, it's more like zinc. That's a big one for my body. My body just churns through zinc more quickly than the average gel, right? So these are different things that I would look at more regularly depending on the person. But we get clear in that first assessment, that first biggie, what do we want to keep an eye on, over time on a more regular basis, and what is just an annual reassessment.
Mm. How will technology help functional medicine? I wear a ring; it gives me too much information. I wear a watch; it gives me so much. Tells me how I sleep. Tells me, uh, you know, uh, it would be nice to kind of combine all this with everything that we do. How will technology help, Doc?
Yeah, well, I mean, Joe, you just pointed to two great ways where I'm sure you've gathered insights, from both of those tools. I really see one of the things I work with people in using that really leads to lots of ahas are continuous glucose monitors, right? Continuous
Mm.
glucose monitors, also known as CGMs, continuous glucose monitors. These, I never start someone with these guys out of the gate. In fact, I've worked with people who have come to me and said, yeah, I used a CGM, I used a continuous glucose monitor. I really don't. It didn't make a difference, right? Well, it didn't make a difference because they were flying blind, right? They had no idea what they were seeing or what to
Uh,
do about it or anything like that. So, we start off by getting an assessment of where someone is, getting them moving along in the right direction. And then we bring a CGM in. And typically we only need a continuous glucose monitor for about a month.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's 2 months, but a month really goes a long way for people to go, holy cow, right? Holy cow. I know you said it, but I can't believe it with my own eyes,
Wow.
right? They get to see that, yes, white rice really does have the same impact on your body as 10 cookies. I know it's hard to believe. I get it. It does, but they can see it real time, and data doesn't lie. So that's good data, I should say. And that's good data. So that's one example of where I really see technology shining in this area of their life, of people's life. But also, like you said, Joe, right? Even with your ring, right? When people bring in people who have kind of gotten away with less sleep, and by gotten away, I just mean they've ignored sleep for a long time,
Sure.
right? It's fabulous wake up calls, right? My stepson is grown and really is diligent about caring for his health, and he was sharing that he has a Whoop band, and when he got his Whoop band, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe the impact of a few drinks on my sleep quality, right? On my cycling between REM and non-REM, sleep. I couldn't believe how screen time impacted my sleep quality." He didn't notice it in his experience per
Wow.
se, but he started to see it and he started to make shifts. And then he got the contrast. He was like, "Oh yeah, no, now I get it." Mhm.
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing. When I got up to 340 pounds, doctor, I mean, I felt your body's a marvelous machine. I mean, it didn't even I felt a little tired going upstairs, but I got over it quick. Your body doesn't. It's just so wonderfully. Oh, it's just a wonderful machine. So it doesn't tell you some of these things that could be wrong with you.
Yeah,
And
it
high
it
blood
is.
pressure, I couldn't tell. They call it the white killer or something, silent
Yeah.
killer, right? And
Yeah, silent killer. Uh-huh. Yeah, no, 100%. No, you're totally right. And I love the way you just acknowledge that. Like, your body is a marvelous machine. It is unbelievable the way our bodies will adjust,
mm,
adapt, will prioritize our existence. And these are the things where I think about, sometimes I talk about libido as a vitality sign,
hmm,
different than vital sign, right? Our vital signs, these are things like your blood pressure and your heart rate and your respiration rate, your temperature. Vital signs are measurements that help us understand if you are in immediate or imminent danger,
mm,
meaning it's fire alarms going off, right? It's like, this is a problem that is threatening your life. Now, something like low libido, I'd call that a vitality sign, right?
mm,
It's telling you, if we think about, okay, what is it to be experience vitality? It's really
hmm,
experiencing our optimal health physically, mentally, emotionally, all these things. And when our libido is down, it is a red flag. It's telling us that there's something going on. And listen, it can be a lot of different things that is interfering with our capacity to feel fully alive,
hmm,
right? And so it's not to be just ignored and brushed under the rug. And it's also not to say, like, listen, there are waves of life. So in stressful times, anyone who's experienced grief or, something like a move, these super stressful times in life, like, yeah, of course, that it's not surprising if your libido's a little bit down, but if that's your kind of like norm, that's really something to pay attention to and
mm.
get curious about. Okay, what's going on that this is true, right? Looking at your hormones, looking at your nutrients, looking at, there are a lot of different things we could speak to on that, but it is, your body is telling you something.
Yeah. It's a really important distinction, isn't it? Because like you can get a blood pressure machine for not expensive at all, and you can read your vital signs pretty quickly.
Yes.
Whereas those other ones, it's tough. I mean, the only way to read cholesterol would be through a blood prick, I believe, right? These certain things you can only do that way, and I hope not forever. By the way, it'd be nice if we could know these things in real time. I hope that's where technology is going to help.
Yeah, I do too. I think we were all so excited about oh my goodness, what's the name of the founder that went
Yeah,
awry?
she's in jail.
Theranos. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Elizabeth something, right? I don't know.
Holmes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, we're not there, but I do also, Joe, very much hope that someday we do arrive at that where it's infinitely easier for people to get information and also understand information in the context of their health, their body, their
Mm,
lives, right? Because, some of it just gets really heady. It's like, oh, okay, my blood sugar's high. Great. Why do I even care about that?
mm,
But when you start, when I'm working with people, we really dig in and we don't just say, oh, your blood sugar's high. It's your blood sugar's high and those symptoms you were talking about, right? Remember how you were telling me that you're super duper tired and you don't know why? Guess what? I see a connection,
mm,
right? And so, and okay, here's the next step towards resolving that, right? This is again crossing the monkey bars. Let's grab that next bar. How about taking 2 to 3 stairs? How about downsizing the Coke? Whatever it is, right? But baby stepping it in a way that is going to, in the long run, this is the long game, meaningfully impact health and be sustainable.
mm. So, when working with a functional doctor like yourself, how is it different from traditional doctors?
Yeah, so, traditional doctors, where they really shine is at fixing things with medication and surgeries, right? So, if someone has high blood pressure, making sure their blood pressure is well managed is really important. So, we want you to go see a traditional physician and manage your blood pressure with medication and come see someone like myself so that we can help you get off those meds over time.
Mm,
Really, it's not that, oh my gosh, that medicine is awful. It's really just a sign of not good things to come,
right.
right? So, other ways that traditional medicine physician shines is really doing important assessments to determine if there's a real problem, right?
Hmm,
Getting colonoscopies as recommended,
mm,
getting mammograms as recommended.
mm.
All of these different things I am so for, and I do myself, right? It's not an either or; it's bringing both together.
I
But
see.
any MD is going to tell you if you can avoid surgery, right? If you can avoid being on a medication, avoid being on a medication.
Mm,
You
mm,
can't always, but sometimes you can, and that's
mm.
great.
So there's directories out there. There's somebody like yourself. We're now committed to going to see a functional practitioner. We meet with you, and what happens?
Yeah, so with me, we start with, well, before we even officially meet, we start with a complimentary consultation because I want to make sure it's a good fit in both directions.
Mm,
You, the patient or client, needs to feel like I'm the right partner in your health journey, and I need to make sure we're the right fit as well. Right. And there are instances where that's just not true. Right. So that's the first step. After that, it really is moving into this journey together. Typically, when I work with people, we're looking at 4 to 6 months. Some people, it's a year of more regular contact to guide this journey. I think of 1 year as one lap, right? One lap, meaning you're going to, in 1 year, encounter all of the logistical challenges, vacation, anniversary, birthday, holidays. You're going to encounter all of those things.
ah,
You're going to encounter all of the emotions of life. You're going to encounter all of the people who encourage you to do the thing that isn't really a match for your new journey, right? All of the stuff, right? So 1 year is one lap. For some people, we'll work together closely for that period. For some people, they don't need quite that amount of close support. But with that, it's we dive in, and the first official appointment is 90 minutes. I'm learning a lot more about you and your health, where you
wow.
are, where you've been, where you're committed to being. I'm listening for missing puzzle pieces. Those puzzle pieces are labs. We're going to have you get those labs. We're going to have you track your life off of a shared document. That means your nutrition, your sleep, your movement, your symptoms, all these different things. We're going to use it all to guide you in stepping into this new era where you are honoring your health as sacred.
What would not be a fit for you?
Yeah, examples of not a fit for me. Someone who is coming to me who's recently been diagnosed with cancer.
Ah,
Yeah, right. That's not going to be a fit for me. Someone who
how come?
well, it's if they have not yet consulted with their oncologist, right? If
I
they're
see.
looking for, I want a natural solution to stage 4 cancer, I am not
Ah,
that solution,
I see. I see.
right? And yeah, so that would be an example. Now, there are people who I work with who are going through treatment and
Right.
we bring this together. That's no problem.
I see.
And that's really cool because there are a lot of amazing, their work kind of ends up working with the person, making sure that what we're doing has the approval of their oncologist, and oftentimes bringing in a pharmacist, like, just bringing it all together to really support that person's body through their journey. Other examples were, there's a woman who I talked to the other day who she, through imaging, there's a mass on her ovaries, and what she needs is a radiologist, not me right now, right? She needs further assessments. And so that was the appropriate redirection for her is, okay, let's find you the right imaging. So, get an MRI so we can get clear on, what's going on for you. Maybe it's nothing, and then come back and see me, but
Right.
we're not going to cross our fingers and guess on something like that.
I would think people want to see a functional medicine practitioner because to get healthy.
Yeah.
I didn't think to myself they have an ailment that they want to cure, but I guess
Yeah,
that's what
and there are times where we can do that, right?
I
There are
see.
times where we can do that, but those are examples of not times. And
Mm.
one other thing that comes to mind is I had a gentleman inquire about working together, and he just, he had a genetic predisposition to autoimmune diseases. He had multiple sclerosis. He had an underactive thyroid that was autoimmune in nature. I want to say he maybe had rheumatoid arthritis also. So clearly, very just unfortunate on the autoimmune front, and he was hoping for a future where he could get off all of his medication, and unfortunately, like, listen, I would love that future for him, but we can definitely work together to optimize his body and reduce symptoms, for sure, for sure, for sure.
Mm.
I just can't in good faith say that your future is going to be without medication for that person. Mm-hmm.
And when someone's selecting a functional medicine practitioner, what should they be looking for?
A few different things. One is no false promises.
Mm.
Right? That's a big deal, right? There's a lot of snake oil out there. So, as most of us have heard before, if it seems too good to be true, it probably
Mm.
is.
Mm.
But, on an outlandish front, like, please stay open to a future where you are producing the outcomes you care about with ease. Like, even if that sounds outlandish, I promise that is a possible future you could live into, right? But so that's one big thing. Another thing is, insufficient education. Right. I have multiple graduate degrees. I am an IFM certified practitioner. These took a lot of time and energy that I did with gratitude because I knew it would allow me to land at a place where I could care for others.
Mm.
And so making sure people are well educated. And as you mentioned before, right, the IFMC, Institute of Functional Medicine, that's IFM. IFM, you can look for, there's a directory where you can look for IFM certified practitioners. I'm on it. That's how a lot of people find me. And that's a great resource for people.
And they don't necessarily, it could be virtual. They don't necessarily have to be physically with you.
Yeah, I actually exclusively work with people virtually. So, I'm wherever you are, I am is kind of my motto. So,
That's nice. That's nice.
yeah, yeah.
And insurance will not cover this.
So, not for my work, right? I do, when I work with people, I provide them with super bills if they ask, so they can submit it to their insurance. But I always ask people to proceed as if they'll be denied
I see.
rather than reimbursed, because I would hate, I try and be as transparent as possible about pricing. And I never want anyone to be left with a source of stress or upset in the financial front. I think, we could have a whole other conversation about the lack of price transparency in medicine, but it's a major problem and it doesn't work, right? That, where, in what other domain would you buy something without knowing the price?
Right.
It's crazy. Imagine going shopping for shoes and you're like, oh, these are either 75 or 1200. I don't know. Sure, I'll take them. Yeah, right.
But, having conversations like these, knowing that there's more functional practitioners out there is going to help. And eventually, I think insurance will start to cover, because I like to think that insurance companies want us to be healthy. The drug companies, but the
Right,
insurance
questionable.
companies, well, just like they're paying
They
for
have a
some.
vested interest.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
vested interest, and I know they're paying for some gym memberships and things like that, which
Yeah.
brings you to another point. So when you're working with somebody and they get their panel done, and you're starting to address some of their issues, is there always a discussion about implementing exercise and sleep into whatever they do? Is there always that discussion and goal?
It depends on the person, right? Because oftentimes, I mean, I work with a lot of people who they have their exercise handled, or
Mm,
maybe they have their sleep handled, right? So it's going to be very
I
targeted, or
see.
maybe, but that will be brought into the conversation if appropriate, right? And sometimes I'll work with people who, let's say they've got cardio down, but they're not really doing strength training. It's like, okay, we
Mm,
need to bring some strength training into your life. And so yes, if it's relevant to the person, sleep is always relevant. If someone's not sleeping well, and strength training, or I'm sorry, movement and exercise, we're gonna baby step it forward in a way that's appropriate for them. But yeah, it will definitely be part of the conversation if it's not present.
so important. It's so important. And for us to be healthy when our system here, especially in the States, is just against us. I mean, there's these big money companies that just make money on making us unhealthy, and you just have to fight. It's it's inexpensive to be unhealthy.
Short term,
Yeah,
inexpensive.
short term. Good
Long
point.
term, it's the priciest thing in the world.
Right,
It'll
good
cost you your
point.
life.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Can you
yeah.
think of a bigger price to pay?
And what better investment is there other than yourself? Is there anything in the last month or so, doctor, that you've changed your mind on?
That's a good question. I would say, let's see here. Nothing that I've really changed my mind or so in the last month in particular, but a few new things that have come on my radar in the last kind of 6 months in an elevated way, are two supplements. I don't have any, like I don't have ownership in these supplements or,
Sure.
like that. So, but one of them is Akkermansia. So Akkermansia is a probiotic. It's a specific strain of bacteria that I've been using with greater frequency out of after learning more about it. And the magic of Akkermansia, if someone needs it, is that it has a powerful impact on heart health. So things related to lipid panel, cholesterol panel, as well as on diabetes.
Wow.
So pre-diabetes, diabetes, we're talking about fasting glucose and fasting insulin and hemoglobin A1C. All of those numbers, I honestly, Joe, I wouldn't have believed it unless I've seen it. It's
Wow.
never the only thing I use when working with someone, but I've been really amazed at the synergy between Akkermansia and some of the nutritional shifts we make and
Hmm.
some of the other supplements we bring in. It's notable. It's awesome. There are a few companies out there that have products. One of them is called Pendulum. They were kind of the front runner in bringing Akkermansia to the public eye. And there's another company, I want to say it's Metagenics. I'm pretty sure they have one that has some green tea with it, which I really like because that's beneficial for insulin sensitivity and anti-inflammatory as well. Another supplement is called Fatty 15.
Hmm.
Fatty 15. And I'm just kind of in the middle of, really digging into it with greater detail, but I will tell you, I do regularly use omega-3 fatty acids when working with people in the way of supplements, also known as fish oil. This fatty 15 is a different kind of fatty acid. So omega-3 is one kind, this fatty 15 is a different one. And I've noticed even more powerful benefits, in particular around heart health, around cholesterol levels, with this fatty 15. So those are, I don't know. There's only one company that's doing this fatty 15 thing, and I've hopped on the phone with their reps, and I'm just really impressed by the work they're doing.
Yeah, I like the fish oil. I've been taking it for a while. I notice I swim faster with it. No, that's a
Cool.
joke. That's a joke, of course.
Ah,
But,
I like it. I'm sorry, Joe. That was slow. I was like, oh, really? Wow. Huh.
how about quercetin and the mushrooms? You know, the turkey trot, lion's mane, all the mushrooms.
Yeah. So, well, two different things. So, quercetin, I think about more as it pertains to some kind of mast cell activation syndrome or allergies, like anything in the histamine production. So, just for those of you who are just like shook your head and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Just think about allergies and antihistamines. Like, traditionally you might think about Benadryl, right? But something like quercetin can be really powerful in that front. And it's a great antioxidant as a whole. There are other things that it does well, but quercetin can be really nice in that world. And in the way of mushrooms, there are a lot of really great mushrooms out there. One of the concerns I have with some of these combo products, there are a few different ones out there, is I don't think I haven't seen enough research on the combined products, because when I look at what's in them, it's like in my experience, they couldn't have enough of any one particular mushroom to get the benefits of what that mushroom does well. So, for example, lion's mane, we think about that with cognitive health yeah, exactly. We think about things like reishi mushrooms in the way of adrenal support, and cordyceps in the way more of immune support. So each of these mushrooms does something wonderful. And so I just don't know if in smaller amounts altogether, there could be synergy. I don't know. But I tend to be, if I am using mushrooms, I tend to choose one and be a little more use a higher dose of that one, so that we're ensured to get the benefits of that one. But mushrooms do wonderful things.
Yeah, quercetin in particular. That's with a Q, by the way, if anybody's listening. And yeah, the mushrooms. The ones that mix. I always wonder about that. I kind of think of those, restaurants. It's like a Chinese, Japanese restaurant. Pick one. You can't be both. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if it's the same with
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, where I fall with those mushroom combos is I just let people know, like, okay, so based on what I can see in this product, I'm not concerned about any of the ingredients. I just don't know if they're going to do the job. So do you notice a difference? Like, do you? If you notice a difference, then great. Keep taking them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's lots of great ones there too. So like I mentioned before, Doctor, I was up to 340 pounds. I'm 200 pounds now. I was like a 46-inch waist. I'm a 32. Yeah. So it's just
Amazing,
I have a
Joe. That's
picture of
awesome.
all the clothes. Another big practice I see when people lose weight, they keep their fat clothes. Get rid of them. Get rid of them because you're
Yes.
not wearing them again.
Absolutely. And exactly what you're saying is totally spot on. You're declaring to the universe, no, I am not going back. Period. Yes.
There are times when I feel that the 340 pound inside me guy is trying to get out, and I have to keep him down. I'm doing a little thing this month. We're calling it Sober October, where we're doing a bunch of things. But one thing is like no refined sugar.
Cool.
And my goodness, it's everywhere. I love a good cookie and ice cream, believe me, and I don't do it often. The 80-20 rule, 80% of the time. I know you intermittent fast. I heard you talk about it. It's good for some, not for everybody. I eat two meals a day, and I'm never hungry, and I enjoy it. But So, and another thing about weight loss is, I think we mentioned it before, people just gain it back. And this yo yo stuff is not good for you. So, you can't look as a finishing line, right? I got down to my weight and now I can go back. It's not the case. It's lifelong changes.
100%. We want to remember, and it's funny that we forget this, but we do, right? Actions produce outcomes,
Mm,
right? And so your current outcomes are a perfect fit for your actions. Your actions mixed with your genes, but they're still a perfect fit, right? So if you're committed, rather, if you're committed to new outcomes, you will need to take new actions. And if you take those new actions and produce those new outcomes, you're going to need to
hmm,
sustain those actions
yeah.
to keep those outcomes, right? It's just the way it works. I don't know of any other solution. So, to circle back and talk a little bit about the scale where we started this conversation, I think it's so funny. I think about the scale a little bit like the scoreboard at a baseball
Mm,
game,
mm.
right? Can you imagine, Joe, do you have a favorite baseball team?
I do. They're in the World Series, the New York Yankees, sure.
Okay, we'll go with the Yankees, even though I'm a Cubbies fan. Pretend you're at a Yankees game, and one of their awesome superstar batters steps up to bat, and he's holding his bat, and he's looking at the scoreboard, and you're like, all right, let's go, right? And he's looking at the scoreboard, and you're like, okay. And he's looking at this, and all he does is stand there and look at the scoreboard, and you're gonna be like, for the love of
Ah,
God, hold
mm,
the bat, hit the ball where people
mm,
are not, and run really fast,
mm,
right? So the scoreboard is the scale. You need to know, you want to know what the score is. You want to know what the scale is, but how you move that score in baseball is hitting the ball where people aren't and running fast.
yes.
How do you move the score? How do you move the needle on the scale? Well, nutrition, movement, sleep, all de-stressing, all of these different things. There are many different things, but those are the actions. Those are the equivalent of hitting the ball and running. And
Mm.
so, you kind of want to begin practicing action, 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 and honoring those actions as sacred.
Yeah, and to continue with that analogy, there may be an inning where you didn't do well. You may look at the scale one day and say, "Well, how did I gain a pound?" And you get so discouraged. And hey, you got to still work at it and look at it again. Keep going.
Absolutely. Well, and just as like it would be with baseball, right? If someone is really excelling in the game of baseball at a certain point, when they look at that inning, they'll know. They'll be like, well, I was in the outfield and I missed that catch, right? Or I struck out. Like that's how the score happened.
Mm,
Right. And so the usefulness of the scale is to be able to look back and say what worked and what didn't work. They're
mm,
both really important in being able to be honest and kind and honest. I really see that as a foundational skill to cultivate in this area
mm,
of life. It's
mm,
uncommon for people to come to their health and their body, and especially their weight, being kind and honest.
mm,
Usually they're honest, which means they pull up the whipping post and they just beat themselves up all day
mm,
long,
mm, mm.
or they're kind and they just don't look because they're like, for the love of God, I can't take the beating anymore, right? So if you can begin practicing being both kind and honest, you can start to use the learnings. I'm sure, Joe. I mean, to
Hmm.
go from, 220, I'm sorry, was it 350?
340 to 200.
340 to 200. To go from there,
Yeah.
you learned, and I suspect if I said, okay, pen and paper, go, Joe, write down everything you learned, you'd be
Mm,
sitting there for like a couple of hours, right? And all of those learnings, some of those you learn
mm.
them just by way of discovery, and some of those you learn by way of saying, oh yeah, that was a bad ending.
Right.
That didn't work. I don't want to do that one again. Right? Great. You used it. That's what matters.
Yeah, and that continually changes because that was in my 20s. I'm now in my 50s and my metabolism slowed down. So what could have worked there may not work now. So you got to constantly evolve and continue to see what works.
100%. 100%. It's, working with the reality of what is it right now. Yep, absolutely. Mhm.
So when I tell people the story, doctor, they always look at me and they're like, they want to, what's your secret? What's your quick answer? And of course, there's no quick answer. So, given when I drill it down to one word, is how did I lose 130 pounds in 7 months? I say discipline, right? I got a routine, I got structure, I got restraint, I got some direction, some strictness, and that's it. You want to lose weight, discipline, right? So I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Dr. Jessie.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's so funny. If we take the word discipline, I think a lot of people would hear things in that word
Mm,
that aren't there, right? They might go more towards like discipline, willpower,
mm,
right? And while, yes, we do need willpower at times, if that's the only tool we're reaching for, we're screwed, pardon my
mm,
French, right?
mm,
Because willpower is a delicate tool, it breaks easily. And so, if we take the word discipline and we look at the root, which is disciple, it's like, well, what are we a disciple of? Well, we're a disciple of loving life.
mm,
We're a disciple of loving those in our lives. We could start to peel back that layer and start to think about, okay, well, that's actually, I think for you, Joe, the thing that drove everything else. And you invented the structures, you came up with resources, you figured out what worked for you.
mm,
And, but at the heart of it was your daughter.
mm,
The heart of it was, I, I'm going to be here for her graduation and for many
mm,
decades to come. So, that's where I'd invite people to begin to look. But, in the world of, my health, it wasn't always like that for me, right? I had my own journey. And at a certain point, I really got like, my own struggles with my weight. They're interfering with me being fully present with the amazing people in my life. And I have
mm,
amazing people in my life, and it's interfering with me fully contributing to this world. And when I got that, I was just like, no, it's not how it's going to go. I'm going to figure this out. And like, please, the divine, whatever you want to call it, like, help me in this journey. And if you
mm,
help me, I'll devote myself to helping others. I'll devote my life to helping others. And it really was this kind of collaboration that for me led the way forward. And there
mm,
was a lot along the way, just as you know, right? There was learning of factual information. There was learning of myself. There was learning of, how do I structure an environment that just makes it easy. And for me, it was probably not too far of a different time. This was around 2004 that I drew a line in the sand. And
wow.
so, like, if you think about for yourself, like, I mean, things that were difficult then, it's like you wouldn't. They're just not hard. You just don't
Right.
think about it. But it
Yeah.
took time to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just natural routine and Mike, you at one point you mentioned soda. I mean, I was drinking so much soda. I haven't had a soda in I don't know how long. I had a sip of one recently in the last couple months, and it was so thick. And I was like drinking this water. It's like a milkshake. It is so thick, and so you just kind of get used to it. But that's calories in drinks to me was just a waste, And so again, I just got used to that. I never had a cup of coffee my whole life. I know people start their mornings with coffee and sometimes it's pretty much a dessert. Some of these people
A
that they're having
100%. Oh my gosh, Joe, I
1,500
laugh.
calories within an hour of waking up. I see people at the airport in lines, like kind of twitching, because they haven't
Yes. No, I think about, I'm like, what, like that dessert you're walking down the street drinking out of your
yes,
lovely Starbucks cup. Can you imagine someone walking down the street with like a hot fudge sundae loaded with like,
not different,
everything, and
not
just
much
like being
different.
like, good morning.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
that would not be socially acceptable. But the Starbucks cup is the equivalent, and that's fine.
Very, very different. What motivates you, Doctor?
What motivates me? Well, I love this life.
Mm,
I love the people in my life, and I love people as a whole. And I really, it really motivates me to look at what will allow me to expand my capacity to contribute. That is for me a big source of motivation.
Impact.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But when you can talk to somebody, do a panel on them, and then work with them and do the panel again and actually see scientific changes, like, look, here are your changes that you've implemented with my help. How rewarding is that?
Oh my gosh, there's like nothing like it.
Right.
I want to do backflips. When I get
Right.
labs and I'm like a kid before Christmas, I'm like so excited to, it'll be like, oh God, I got to shut down my computer. I'm like, no, but I can't go to bed without looking at these labs, like, so it is so fun. It is so fun it's fun to see the outcomes people produce in our
Mm.
partnership, and also fun to see who people come to know themselves as, right? Like it actually,
Mm.
like who you know yourself now as versus who you knew yourself as before, it's different. Like you actually know yourself as someone different. And that's really amazing.
Mm.
Really, really amazing. And it'll be sometimes it's the little things when, I have this amazing woman who I work with who, she's just like an annual check-in now, but a couple of Christmases ago, a couple of holiday seasons ago, she emailed me after the new year and she said, this is the first year I didn't want to new year, new me myself.
Mm.
Uh-huh. I was like, atta girl, atta
Yeah.
girl.
Those gym memberships in January go way up.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. She's like, I don't need a whole 30. I don't need a whole anything. I'm just cruising along feeling great. Mhm.
So, given that motivation, how do you measure success?
For myself, good question. I would say a few different ways, like, well, they're different realms, right? But um, professionally, how many lives am I touching? How many
Mm.
people am I working with and making a difference with? And also in my professional team, I just adore the people who I work with. And so, one is, are they happy? Are they engaged? Are
Mm.
they, fulfilled in their work? Like how long have we been working together? And that would be a sign of that, and the way
Mm.
they show up at work. And then also like being clear on what their long-term vision is for their career path, and how can I help them have that be true.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, we need more. We need more functional medicine. We need more people involved with it. We have to, as the I'm just talking about the states here, 350 million of us. We need to change the way grocery stores are being set up because we're the consumers. We have to eat the healthy route. That way they'll start to make the changes. We have to make things more available that'll help us. We need more functional medicine. We have to make these changes ourselves in order to change the market.
Yeah, and I'd say we do need more healthy fast food options that are
Mm.
available, right? In most major cities, you can find them. They're probably more expensive. Um, so we need more all over the place that are more reasonably priced.
Mm.
And I would also say beginning the conversation with kiddos, you know,
Right.
about beginning conversations that engender a sense of gratitude for your amazing body. That's a great, I would say, gratitude and wonder, right?
Mm.
Because like when you start to learn about all of the things your body is doing, right? You talked about like what it was like to be 340, and you actually like, "Oh, I didn't really feel that. Like,
Yeah, you
it-
don't.
like you start learning about all that your body was doing, is doing now. It's like, oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm.
Like, thank you,
Mm.
body, for, the things I did to you that now that I know better, I would undo them if I could, and yet you managed. So thank you. You know?
Absolutely. We need, yeah, we need to take care of ourselves. The self love that you said is just, it's so important. We're so, on the go. I know you spent some time in Switzerland, and I have relatives there in Switzerland and in Italy, and just the thought of, a cup holder in a car to them is so foreign. But that's just the way we are here in the States.
Well, actually, what's hilarious to your point, Joe, is I don't know if you know this, but drinking hot beverages while driving in Switzerland is illegal.
Wow.
Yes, and eating while driving is illegal.
That's
Can you?
awesome.
So, do you think they have any drive-throughs?
Right. They
No,
don't have any drive-throughs.
not a one,
So
not
different.
a one.
So
It's
different. Yeah.
awesome. It's so
Yeah.
great, and
Yeah.
so it's not like I certainly don't think capitalism is quote unquote bad or evil or
Of
anything like
course.
that. But there's a prioritization of the dollar over, right? Making money over. And I think they can both coexist
They can.
100%.
Yeah.
Like we can have companies that thrive and contribute to health. Can
Mm,
have companies that thrive and contribute to people's evolution and education, right? They are not mutually exclusive. So come
right.
on, like let's get more inventive and play for that future.
I agree. While some of those policies and ways in Europe are good, not everything is great over there. I don't want to paint that impression, right? So we can certainly change some of those systems here. We've got to be driving that. I thank you so much for your time today, Doctor. Anybody listening, watching, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. So you can get in touch with me at wellempowered.com. I'll give you a few different ways you can, if you'd like to connect, please schedule a complimentary consultation. You know, it will say that it's there to explore working together, but I mean this wholeheartedly. Even if you don't think you have any intention of scheduling an appointment, that's fine. If you just want to connect and ask me a few questions, please get on my books for a complimentary consultation. It would be a pleasure. Another way you can connect there is at wellempowered.com/dare. That's well empowered, EMPOWERED.com/dare. There, you're going to be invited every week to take on a new micro habit. So it's perfect that
Hmm.
we started with that in this conversation, Joe, right? So micro habits like taking 2 to 3 flights of stairs, and you're going to be invited to take it on for a week and just notice what happens so that
Yeah.
you'll get that into your inbox every week. Then last but not least, you can find me on Instagram at well empowered.
Well, like you said, WELL, empowered, EMPOWERED.com, and on Instagram as well. You've got great, great content. I thank you so much for your time. Next time I'm in the greater Chicago area, perhaps we'll get a cup of tea.
Would love it. Thanks so much, Joe.
You be well.
You too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.